Hello and welcome to Roundtable with me, David Foster. There's the luxury holiday abroad with sun, sangria and sand. And there's the stay-at-home one with wild weather and sea temperatures that give you goosebumps. If you're brave enough to go in at all, that is. Which would you choose? Well, times are changing. The Staycation, it's called, choosing to be in your home country rather than travel and run the associated risks of crowds and coronavirus. Pack the car, the camper van, or the caravan. Here we come.
One thing remains clear in all the uncertainty around travel and COVID-19. Smaller trips and weekend getaways closer to home could be the new normal. The term staycation provides an opportunity for people to rethink how they do holidays. Environmental campaign group Rapid Transition Alliance has said, growth in the experience economy could be beneficial to our environment and to our well-being, but only if it replaces flying and other high-consumption trips. Although many countries depend on tourism, opening their borders to foreign tourists could lead to a second wave of COVID-19. The increase in international tourism has been staggering, rising from 25 million visits in 1950 to over 1.4 billion today, a 56-fold increase. Will staycations lead to growth in domestic eco-friendly holidays? And how will the global travel map be rewritten?
Pleased to say we can welcome back to Roundtable out of Washington, D.C., Elizabeth Becker, former New York Times correspondent and author of Overbooked, the exploding business of travel and tourism. We go to Marrakesh in Morocco and say hello to Zina Ben Sheikh, Managing Director for Europe, the Middle East and Africa at Intrepid Travel, and then to Kansas in the United States. Rolf Potts joins us from there, travel writer and author of Vagabonding, an uncommon guide to the art of long-term world travel. Ostensibly, all three of you, this is about staycationing, staying at home, but let's broaden it and say it's about how vacations are going to look in the future. And let me come to you first of all, Rolf, because you talk about independent travel, how it's been around for a very long time, and that package holidays you think will disappear.
Well, I don't know if package holidays will disappear, but they'll probably follow in the footsteps of where the independent travelers go in this sort of era. We use the word staycation now, but actually during World War II in the United States, they had what were called home vacations. That was sort of a centrally directed push to travel closer to home. But I think as travel recovers from the current pandemic, the leaders in this, the people who find the new ground, will be the independent travelers who just really want to travel and don't really care about the industry trends.
You talk about it having been around for some time. What are you going to learn that is different if you holiday at home rather than overseas?
Well, you can surprise yourself. I think sometimes the most important part of travel is the attitude. You know, the big cliche in New York is that most New Yorkers haven't been to the Statue of Liberty where all the tourists have gone. So I think that one way that you can make a staycation better is just to turn off your smartphone, for example. Like you wouldn't, check your stocks or text your childhood friend from a beautiful place on the other side of the world. Same thing happens for a staycation. I think the idea of being where you are and really focusing on the place, even if it's just a few miles from your home, is going to bring you into that attitude of travel, even if you're not in an exotic place.
Zina, let me come to you. Marrakesh, beautiful city. I was there about a year and a bit ago, and I loved it. But according to you, the people you normally bring from the United Kingdom to Morocco just aren't coming. 80% have said they won't be leaving the UK, and that must be pretty bad for your business.
Definitely, we are an outbound travel adventure company, and we rely on travelers to go and travel internationally. But we've also had, as part of our plan, as the largest sustainable adventure travel company, to develop range of local products and domestic products for many, many years. I guess this crisis has just helped us to realize the importance of doing it much more earlier than we thought. But yeah, definitely important to say that people are looking into traveling more domestically than ever at this moment of time.
Okay, you still presumably want to attract visitors from European countries, from the United Kingdom to Morocco. You might have to change your business plan for that. How are you going to encourage them to do it?
At the moment, the first aspect that our customers are sharing about what would make them want to book a holiday internationally is the safety aspect. So for us, our major concern is to make sure that our trips will run in the safest possible manner and reassure our customers that it will be the case. So we did suspend our trips until the end of September when we were the middle of March and in the middle of the crisis where all the countries were closing their borders. And we did stop and suspend our trips for maybe longer than any other international company because we wanted to make sure that the day we operate in a safety manner. So this is a very important aspect for telling customers that it's possible to travel internationally again.
And smaller groups?
Smaller groups. We've always actually offered trips on smaller group. Our average group size is 9, which is pretty small anyway, with a maximum of 12 to 16, depending on the trips. So we are definitely still doing that and not changing anything about it. But we are looking into other elements of the trips that maybe we were not looking at before this crisis, such as the sanitation aspect, eating outdoor, offering more outdoor activities, offering single supplements on every single trips we offer, and different things like that to make sure that people feel confident when they book a trip and when they are on a trip with us.
Elizabeth, I'm going to talk to you principally about staycations. And in a little while, we're going to see a short little video clip from Cornwall, which is in the west of the United Kingdom, favourite holiday spot. We'll play that in just a moment. But I want to ask you about the sort of holidays that you personally would be prepared to take if you were a staycationer and you were in the United States, beautiful country. I know, I lived there for 5 years. Where would you go? What would you choose? What sort of things are on your mind?
Well, I've made my choice. We're going to Vermont this year. We've found a wonderful cabin in the forest. And it's not as easy as you might think because we're going to have to quarantine in our cabin when we get to Vermont, which is fine. That's why we're going up there. But you can't travel from state to state as you might have thought in the pre-pandemic times. I won't go south. I won't go close to Florida, Texas, anything like that. I only go to the states where you have controlled COVID-19. So staycation is as much ruled here as any other place, any other way, by COVID-19. I know exactly the route we're driving, and I know the route we're taking. So we go through what are called green states, where testing is working, where the health possibilities are open, they're not full, and where COVID is under control. So that's the first thing.
Okay, let's have a look at this.
It's not easy.
Yeah, let's take a look at this little clip from Visit Cornwall.
The good news is that you're now able to visit Cornwall for those long-awaited, cherished holidays and short breaks. We look forward to welcoming you back, but because of the virus, some things will be different. You may be looking for assurance about your safety and if you'll be welcome. Equally, our communities are concerned that the virus may accelerate when we reopen tourism, so here's what we're doing. Although Cornwall will be as wonderful as ever, you'll notice some changes.
So there's Cornwall saying, come and see us. You may have concerns. We may have concerns. And I wanted to talk about something from Lawrence Reed. He's hosted a radio show in Cornwall for almost 25 years. And he said it's not quite pitchforks at the Tamar, that is the river that divides Cornwall from the rest of the UK, but there's been an undercurrent of concern. Back to you, Elizabeth. People are going to have worries either about going places, because as you say, you don't know what states are safe to go through, but also the locals are going to have concerns about people coming in.
Absolutely. Just today, New York State said it is concerned about any traveler from Florida or Texas. And the state of Rhode Island has already talked about closing the governor is talking about closing that state's borders. We're like a continent unto ourselves. So yes, it's both ways. And when California just shut down yesterday after being open, Texas is starting to shut down. So we're not even close to discussing what a simple, fun staycation is like here. The pandemic is flaring up everywhere.
Okay, this is from Statista.com, and I'll talk to you about this, if I may, Zena. Around the globe, the collapse of the tourist economy has bankrupted hotels, restaurants, bus operators, and car rental agencies, and thrown an estimated 100 million people out of work. I don't know how big your company is, Zena, but I would imagine it's been very, very difficult. Are you worried about being able to carry on?
Well, it's been the most difficult crisis we've ever been on, and we've been 31 years in business. We've been through SARS, through the global finance economic crisis. We've been through the bombing in Sri Lanka more recently. It's above everything we've really ever been on. But I think some of the positives about Intrepid is that we are a privately owned company, and we don't have any debt. So financially, we're quite solid, and we've had some very good years of growth and profit growth. So we are able to keep going for a little while, but we really depend on the international travel and outbound travel to come back. So this is while we have been developing range of domestic trips, and we have the chance to own our own destination management companies, which are operations offices all around the world. And at the moment, I'm based on one of them in Marrakesh. But we have these companies everywhere really in the world where we operate trips. So going into more domestic type of travel, regional type of travel will help us to diversify. And at the moment, we're really on a sort of a hibernation / reimagination mode, where we look like, even if we're big, we look like a startup and look at what are the immediate opportunities we can really look into to really deviate the business focus and yeah. So we're hopeful that this will pass as everything, and we know tourism will bounce back. What we think is that when this will happen, we'll be in a good position as a big player, the largest player on the sustainable travel space. It's clear to us that before this crisis, but even more after, people who will want to travel even more sustainably than ever, and we'll be in a good space for that. But we really need to go through this next few months and potentially years where it will be tough for everyone, for sure, and for us as well.
Let's do a bit of reimagining here on this program, on this round table, and tell me whether you think you'll be able to encourage Moroccans themselves to stay at home more, to see the beauties of their country. That is staycationing.
Totally.
To be in that part of North Africa.
Yeah, totally. And it's exactly what we want to do. And we have this local presence where we offer amazing experiences for travelers from the UK, Australia, the US. Why can't we offer them to Moroccans or Vietnamese, where we have this presence and these amazing products? And you know what? My husband has never been to the Sahara Desert, and he's a Moroccan. So, I just think there is a real need here to educate local people in what is amazing about their own countries. And I think there is a massive opportunity as well. So this is what we're doing, and this is the reason why we can fast-track part of our strategy that we've always wanted to do before, to launch more local and closer to home type of products for customers from all over the world.
You've had somebody behind you mucking about a bit. You may want to, while I talk to Rolf, either tell them or close the door.
That's it's closed. Hopefully no one is going to enter.
Okay, well, they were popping their head in. Rolf, what about the fact that if destinations become very popular because people are staycationing, it's going to be very difficult to book, to find the right places to go?
That could be the case. I think statistically, even if there's a boom in staycations, it's not necessarily going to saturate local places. It could. But I think, we're talking about the idea of the travel industry being in a hibernation mode. I think there will be an extent to which things will just operate on a much slower and lower level now. But it's possible from a business standpoint that staycations or home vacations will keep some of these businesses alive and keep the travel instincts and appetite of people going before this ends. And it occurs to me that one of the first big booms in 20th century travel was the 1920s, which was after the influenza pandemic. So I'm optimistic that things will come around. It's hard to tell how and when they will come around.
Yeah, and it's going to be difficult to know where to choose, isn't it? Because Elizabeth was mentioning California, Florida, flare-ups in states, and what were hotspots in terms of tourism once before could well be hotspots in terms of the pandemic if there's a second wave, or indeed a first wave in some places.
Yeah, I caught onto that. Being in the travel industry, I hear hotspots applied to travel all the time, oftentimes in the context of overtourism for places like Venice and Bali. And so it's just interesting to hear that same word used in the context of the pandemic. And I'm based in Kansas, which is not a tourist place, and travel is actually pretty easy here right now. But because the population pressures are not very strong here, maybe our spike will happen 3 months from now. There's no silver bullet. That basically we're all struggling with the unpredictability of this virus right now. So it's sort of hard to predict what's happening, even as I like to think that I'm pretty optimistic about what can happen.
Elizabeth, let me throw another quote at you. This is from Visit England director Patricia Yates, and she writes, "Our priority is to make sure tourism rebounds to once again become one of the most successful sectors of the UK economy, and this, quote, ring of confidence is a crucial step on the industry's road to rebuilding." If you weren't going to Vermont this summer, and I know how beautiful it is out there, absolutely stunning, would you perhaps think of visiting a place that have given you the sort of guarantees that she is, this ring of confidence? What would they need to say?
Oh, I would love to. What's missing from this equation, though, is our governments, our national governments. And our government, the Trump administration, has sort of given up, has not taken that basic responsibility of giving the trust. So I don't know if I could, I know as an American, I can't go to Europe. Our COVID is too horrible. But even if I could go someplace, would the administration let me back in, or would the rules have changed? And that's one thing that we can't figure out yet is, will national governments follow the science, come up with national procedures? An earlier guest from the previous program discussed this too. We need national governments that take responsibility, come up with procedures, and then use their authority to ensure that they're enforced. In a sense, to talk to our blogger, I think we're going to go back to the future. Before we recover, we're going to go back to the days before globalization, when most of us were independent travelers, where we knew we had to get visas to cross any border, where we had to have yellow health cards that showed all of our vaccinations, where we looked at travel as many weeks, if not months, because it was such an effort, and we learned the language and all that sort of stuff. It was not the easy travel that we've been used to in the 21st century. And so I'm looking to that stage to gear how much we can then jump into a more 21st century.
Yeah, but that's probably going to cost a bit more, isn't it? Because one of the reasons that costs can be driven down is because of the bulk of people. Procedures have become simpler. It's been cheaper to fly. Anything that is taken out of that mainstream is going to be more expensive, isn't it?
Yes. And the whole idea of group travel is exploded. When you think of cruise ships, that's the ultimate group travel. And they're among the last that are expected to come back. And with their inexpensive trips, those are going to go. Group travel is an anathema when you have a pandemic, and with health and safety so high up on the list. Yes, we'll see how it shakes out. But as I said before, it's not just the cost of the travel. It's, do we have the money to spend? Do we have the disposable income? And with the hundreds of millions of jobs being lost, with no idea when various economies are going to come back, I don't see how we all can afford the vacations that we've had taken for granted for so many years. We may look back at this as the golden era of travel and tourism.
Well, Zena, let me put this to you, not so much as a professional in the travel industry, although that obviously comes into it, but on a personal level as well. Have we been spoiled with all of the cheap travel that we've had? And are we, or have we, therefore spoilt the destinations such as Marrakesh to which people can go, and those days will never return, and that's maybe not such a bad thing?
Yeah, probably. I do think there is a positive thing around that as well. And this is referring back to what I was saying about tourism to rebound more responsibly, is also to rebound thinking about destination first and the impact of tourism in the destination as well as in the environment. We don't know yet which destination and how the local communities will react. They've been the ones who received the less amount of support, financial, governmental support. They've been badly hit by this crisis, as many, but I think in the destination, in the developing world, we're not talking enough about will they want travel to come back as we left it before. I think with the level of healthcare that can be quite low and quite poor in some of these destinations and developing countries, local people and local communities might not want tourists to come back, because remember, the virus for them, at least in their perception, came from overseas and from Western countries. So this is all unknown at the moment.
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? You talk about people relying on tourism, and they want the visitors to come in, but at the same time, if the visitors come in, then they are exposing themselves to this virus. So what do they do?
Well, there's a middle ground. It's really about, and I think that we see that a lot more now in the inquiries that we're getting from customers. As I mentioned earlier, safety is number one aspect for booking a travel now. So we tend to think that people will take the purchase decision and they will buy less, maybe online, less cheap deals, last minute deals, and more with companies that can reassure them, travel agents. We're seeing a big shift toward booking through travel agents, because these are people who can reassure and explain and tell customers what happened if and how is this whole trip planned and how it is all organized from a safety perspective. So I do think that part of this mass last minute cheap tourism or offer will reduce massively moving forward for a bit more qualitative, which not necessarily means luxury, but more qualitative, reputable tour operator and companies that people will feel safer to travel and book a trip with.
Okay, in a moment, I shall come back to you. I've already asked Elizabeth this question. I know the answer to where she's going on holiday this year. I shall come back to you, Zina, and say, will you tell me about your plans for your summer vacation, if you have one? Rolf, I will do the same. But first of all, I want to ask you this question. Isn't there a dilemma here that if you encourage people to go on more independent travel trips or staycations, then those very places that have been attractive because of their beauty, their remoteness, their inaccessibility, the fact that there aren't many people there, could well become overcrowded?
Right. Well, that's a question that predates the pandemic, really. The idea of making a place famous, the idea that the characteristics which make a place worth traveling to become less interesting once you're surrounded by other travelers. And again, demographically, I think people are just not going to travel as much during the pandemic. And so that's less of a problem now. And one advantage of the staycation is that people are traveling in their backyards. They're traveling in local areas, and it's less likely to suffer those same problems that happen with mass tourism. And so it really remains to be seen. And I think that question of over-tourism will become an issue as the travel industry recovers in whatever way it does. We'll go back to those same problems that we had before the pandemic.
Okay, where are you going for your next trip?
I'm going to Colorado this weekend. I love my home state of Kansas, but it's really, really hot here in July. And so my girlfriend has a cabin in the mountains, and we're going to go hiking and read some books and just sort of enjoy a quiet, adjacent staycation in a nearby place.
Nowhere near Telluride by any chance, is it?
No, it's near Fort Collins. It's up by Estes Park, so it's on the eastern side.
Okay, well, if it was Telluride, you could have waved at my daughter, who happens to be there at the moment, back at work.
Excellent.
Thank goodness. Zina, can I ask you this? What are you planning to do for your next trip?
I'm actually going to trial one of our Intrepid retreats, closer to home retreats in Europe, in Croatia, which is in an island called Lastovo. It's actually the most remote island and the most unvisited island of the country. And we've been sending customers there for many years now. But we've just designed a more a retreat type of product, which really just stay in the island for a longer period of time to get a feeling of it. And I have never been, so I'm going there with the family in August to try it. And
Not worried
in
about
Europe,
flying?
we can actually.
Because I guess it's the only way you can get there.
No, actually, borders have reopened. So I'm going back to the UK in a couple of weeks, and then from the UK you can travel almost everywhere in Europe now. So it's the good thing about being in this part of the world now, but we don't know for how long. So we need to do it as soon as we can.
Well, if you have to be locked down, then Croatia, I suppose, at some point might well be a pleasant place to be stuck. Elizabeth, thank you for appearing on our 2 travel shows. And my thanks to you, Zena, and also to you, Rolf. Stay safe wherever you happen to be moving to. And thank you for taking part in the show. And thank you, wherever you happen to be, for watching this edition of Roundtable. We'll be back pretty soon. We won't be on the road for long. So we hope to have your company then. From me, David Foster, from the Roundtable team. Goodbye for now.